So good morning, everybody. I hope you've had a chance to grab a cup of coffee. If you haven't, there's more coffee and refreshments around the corner, and feel free to go and get some while we get started here. For those of you who maybe don't know me, I'm Andries Coetzee. I'm the director of the African Studies Center here at the University of Michigan. And it is my great pleasure to say welcome to everybody here today at this, the 2021 UMAPS Research Symposium. This is a really important day for us for many reasons here at the ASC. First, it is the first in-person event that we are having as an ASC, as a community, since the start of the pandemic. That's been nearly 2 years since we had an opportunity to get together in person as a community. And that makes today a really consequential moment for us. We've learned during COVID that the things that tie us together as a community is stronger than the virus, right? We've learned that we can still get together on Zoom, learn from each other, and support each other even in that virtual space. But at the same time, as a community, we have really missed the opportunity to see each other face to face, to share a cup of coffee and share a meal together. And as a community, we flourish in togetherness. And therefore, I just want to take a moment to recognize the momentous event that today is, signaling that as a community, we have prevailed during these past 2 years. It signals that we have adapted to a new way of life, right? We're all together here, even if we are behind masks. But it also signals that we are stronger than the pandemic. And I'm therefore very happy for this opportunity to spend time together with all of you here today as the ASC community. And let me say thank you now for everyone who made it possible for us to be together here today. I will leave the official thanks for when we gather again after lunch, but for now, just thank you for all of you for being here and everybody else who made it possible for us. I also know that there's many members of our community who would have loved to be here, but couldn't be here for various personal or professional reasons. So we're also live streaming this on Zoom, therefore. And I've just heard from Enrique that we already have 19 people joining us on Zoom. So also welcome to our Zoom audience. I wish you could be with us here today. But thank you so much that you are participating in that medium. Another reason that today is important is that it signals the culmination of the time on campus for our current, the 13th UMAPS cohort. And let me say that our current UMAPS cohort have been really just wonderful. They are our first post-COVID cohort. Many of them were admitted already and supposed to be on campus last year, and they had to postpone by a year because of COVID. And then even once they arrived on campus, they still had to live with all the restrictions and complications of COVID, right? We had to start a month later and do the first month of the experience virtually on Zoom because of travel delays because of COVID. And then once we are all arrived on campus, you know, we've been behind masks. There have been limits on the amount of interaction we can do. But this cohort just was the example of how one does that. Remained positive, remained engaged, formed a community amongst themselves and more broadly across campus. So a deep, sincere thank you from me from what you taught us about how one can remain positive and kind of take the world by its proverbial horns and excel even in this weird situation in which we're living. Thank you to all of you. As I said, I will leave the other formal thanks for a little bit later in our program. But for now, let us get some of the logistics for the day out of the way. As you will have seen it on the program for today, we've scheduled the presentations in 2 sessions. So we will do 4 presentations before lunch, then we'll break for lunch, and then we'll have 4 presentations after that. Each of our presenters will have around 18 minutes to do their presentation, and Enrique is our timekeeper, and we'll keep you very strictly to the time because we have to do so to make sure we remain on schedule. So have about 18 minutes for their presentations, then there's about a 10-minute period for Q&A with the audience, and then we will hand over to the next presenter. Then at 1 p.m. we'll break for an hour for lunch. Lunch will be catered by the wonderful new restaurant in Ypsilanti, Bon Appetit, a new West African restaurant. If you haven't visited them yet, I think after today's lunch you'll want to. And to everybody on Zoom, I wish you could be here to share lunch with us. Unfortunately, we can't deliver Bon Appetit's food to you to wherever in the world you are joining us from. Then we'll get together again after lunch here at 2 p.m. and we will have our second group of 4 presenters. And then at 4 we will have an informal reception followed by the ceremony where we will recognize each of our current UMAPS scholars, recognize their completion of the UMAPS program. And then as a final reminder, by the university policies, we're all behind masks, so I know it's uncomfortable. I appreciate so much that you are all willing to do so. By now we are somewhat used to that, even if it's still uncomfortable. But thank you everybody for following the protocols and wearing a mask. So with all of the housekeeping out of the way, I think we can start with our first presentation. And yes, Enrique. Yes, thank you for the reminder from the floor from my colleague Enrique. If you are on Zoom, you can use the Q&A function there if you have questions for any of our presenters, and Enrique will be monitoring those questions during the Q&A period. So people in the audience can raise their hands to ask questions. People on Zoom can use the Q&A function there, and we will try to get to as many of those as we can. Thank you for the reminder, Enrique.